Hello and welcome in.
Please do not leave your luggage unattended on the station.
Welcome to the show.
Hey, we are live. BK, how you feeling?
Great. I didn't get to watch nearly any of that Nuggets game. I've only seen highlights because I was traveling back from Kansas City.
Right.
But 5 straight wins at home,
Good
6
stuff.
wins overall, and they're certainly finding their stride. I grabbed my lightning pillow to be able to kind of sit forward and talk to you.
There you go.
Yeah. It was good to see the Nuggets against the defending Western Conference champs. You get back-to-back Western Conference champs.
Yep,
Going head-to-head. Kyrie drops 43. You were there.
I was.
Our guy, Jet, photographer, he was excited to see Kyrie in person, and Kyrie didn't disappoint. I asked a question in our group chat, and we don't need to get bogged down in this for too long, but how good was the look that Kyrie took at the end of the game that would have won it for Los Mavericks, my hometown squad?
It was a good one. I mean, I
clean
think,
look, or was he? Or was it just clean and it just didn't go in? Like the RJ Barrett one, who Russ even said he got a piece of last Monday.
yeah, no, I mean, I think anytime Kyrie Irving's got the ball in his hands with final seconds on the clock, I think you can pretty much,
you feel good.
Feel pretty confident that it's going to go in.
Because it said 26 feet. So I'm like, well, that's well behind the line.
Yeah.
But he was square.
It looked good to me.
Either way.
Yeah, it was a good shot.
You give it 43 points to a guy, you don't love that, but you look at Joker's line and you look at the fact they got a 2-point win against one of the best teams in basketball.
Yeah, I mean, I think the one thing, of course, a win is a win, and we get excited about wins no matter what they look like. They can be messy. There's lots of ebbs and flows. I think my biggest thing right now, of course, we heard head coach Malone talking post-game about how unrealistic it is to have Nikola Jokic playing almost 40 minutes a game for the rest of the season. We're only 10 games in. It's very early still in the year. And we've got Jokic putting up MVP numbers again. Nobody who truly watches Nikola Jokic is surprised by him averaging triple doubles right now. Some of which are one was a 40-point game triple double. Last night was nearly a 40-point triple double. Nobody's surprised by this if you follow, watch, and know Nikola Jokic. Nobody's shocked by him trending in this direction this season. However, we do know that it is a little unrealistic to expect him to do this all season long if he's playing full minutes, and the Nuggets bench is still of concern. But I was talking last night on the post-game show. I'm not sure I'm quite ready. Aside from Dario Saric, that's probably someone right now that I would be okay with us not continuing to have on this roster, just because of the decline that we see in the Nuggets production when he's on the floor. I'm not ready to start playing chess over our bench just yet. Last night, we didn't see a lot of our bench guys play. Hunter Tyson wasn't in there. We only saw Najee, Westbrook, and Julian Strawther playing.
Eight guys. You only played 8 guys, which reminds you of the playoffs, but that's not sustainable.
Right. It's not.
And they play too many good teams to say, oh, well, against Toronto or whatever, we'll go 9, 10 deep, easy, maybe get to 11, and then into the end of the bench at the end of the game. You can't sustain an 82-game season plus a deep playoff run playing 8 guys.
Of course. And we also cannot forget that we're still without Aaron Gordon. And Aaron Gordon does defensively make an impact for this team. I think that when you've got Aaron Gordon and Nikola Jokic out there together, it's a little bit less of a physical load for Nikola Jokic to carry himself. So without Aaron Gordon, it is a very different starting lineup. Now, have to give credit where it's due. I have very much enjoyed Payton Watson minutes. I think Payton Watson is the type of player that we've known for some time. His ceiling is very high and he has a lot of potential, and there's a lot of exciting things. He brings an energy off of the bench, especially defensively, that has become very important for this Nuggets team. I mean, we saw him last season and in their championship run come off the bench and make some big defensive plays. And so to see him 4 of 4 from 3 last night and improving his shooting and offensively making an impact now, not just defensively. I think the only way we would have seen this from Payton Watson and the only way we would have been able to tap into his potential is with an Aaron Gordon injury. I'm not thrilled that Aaron Gordon is injured.
Or maybe MPJ too, but still, to your point.
Yeah, it would have required an injury to see Payton Watson getting these starting minutes. And one thing I vividly remember Coach Malone talking about at Media Day ahead of the season was wanting to see more mental maturity out of Payton Watson, kind of making some smarter in-game decisions and bouncing back from mistakes. If you look back at that OKC game, 2 missed free throws in the final minutes, seconds even of the game when the Nuggets were only up by 2. You don't want an OKC team to, have this much time left and only be down by 2, because at any given moment, SGA gets the ball in his hands and you know that he's good for it most of the time. But then Payton Watson doesn't feel sorry for himself, doesn't hang his head over missed free throws, and he hustles back down the court and he makes an insane block that ultimately helps the Nuggets secure a win against the best team in the Western Conference, who at that point was undefeated. So Payton Watson getting these starting minutes, actually being out there for extended periods of time, I think he's growing. We're watching him grow before our very eyes as a player. He's getting more confident. He's finding his rhythm. And I think without an injury, we wouldn't be seeing this early in the season. But now you've got a guy in that second unit that can shoot the 3. He's getting better with that. He's getting more confident. He's taking more shots, and he's making some really big defensive plays, which has been really fun to see.
It's just fun to watch not only a player grow before your eyes, but start doing things that you want, but you're not sure that he's capable of doing consistently. And, and we're going to have to revisit this 20 games in, 30 games in, 40 games in.
Of course.
But to jump from 0 for 4 from 3, 0 for 1, 0 for didn't take one, 1 for 2, 0 for 2, 0 for 1, 1 for 2, 1 for 4, 2 for 3, 4 for 4. So when you make 6 of the last 7 you've taken, you go perfect. He's not going to have that many 4 for 4 3-point shooting nights, but your confidence grows. We've seen it with Christian Brown, with the way he's shooting the 3 compared to how it's been the last couple of years. Not that he's scared to take it, but if he's open, and when you're playing with Nikola Jokic, you're going to be open. You're playing with Russell Westbrook, you're going to be open. When you're open, you have to be able to take and make those open threes. And that will change who this Nuggets team is. Because when you hear Joker say after the first game of the season, second game of the season, our only 2 good shooters are MPJ and Jamal. Well, 100 Tyson takes exception to that. Certainly Julian Strawther does.
And CB.
And Christian Brown does. And now Payton Watson will, Aaron Gordon, and Joker himself, who is obviously shooting at a really high clip. If they can make those shots consistently throughout the year, it does change this team, so much so that Friday night after they beat the Heat, and Michael Malone's saying, I'm not worried about our offense, because they do run good offense. They do get good looks, and they are going to go in plenty. He's worried about their defense. Joker kind of pushed back at that and said, no, we had a couple of little stretches, but we played overall good defense. And to that end, Michael Malone said part of the reason he had to keep the rotation the way it was is because he wanted to match Payton Watson's minutes with Luka's. And so Luka gets a near triple-double, but 9 of 19. You're making him work a little there. And he gets the 9 boards, 9 assists. But you've got Payton Watson might be the best matchup you have against Luka. I know Aaron Gordon would draw that some, but we understand with defense, there's, it's got to be a willingness, and Payton really, I think, relishes the opportunity to try to shut down a player like Luka.
In some of those last year's regular season games against the Timberwolves, to me, Payton Watson was our best defensive guy against the Timberwolves. He was able to give the Timberwolves the toughest time in certain moments. So yeah, I've known that the ceiling is very high for P-Watt, and I knew that he's not going to grow. He's not going to get better. He's not going to work through that mental maturity unless he's playing and he's getting minutes on the floor. And we're starting to see that. So I think just him knowing he can do it and us as fans seeing that he can do it feels really good. We've got one comment up there asking about the in-season tournament. I don't think this is a hot take. This is fully a lukewarm take here, but I really could care less about the in-season tournament. When I look at this Nuggets team, my biggest concern with them last season was their lack of energy and momentum by the end of the season. They looked worn out. They looked exhausted. They looked tired. So to me, treat the in-season tournament as a really great opportunity to get our bench guys more minutes, because ultimately, are we going to remember a decade from now that the Los Angeles Lakers won the first in-season tournament?
Yeah, they hung a banner.
Yeah, well, I don't care about the damn banner. I really could give a crap less, and that maybe makes me sound like a hater.
If they win the in-season tournament, we're going to put a banner up right here.
No, thank you. No, thank you. And it's not that I want them to do well. I want them to play their best basketball, but I also...
It does add an extra game if they made it to the finals, and you have 83 games.
See,
maybe that's why the Lakers were so tired in that first round.
Or they're just not, they just weren't good.
Maybe both.
It could be both. But again, as a fan, I don't go into the in-season tournament going, oh gosh, I hope we can win. I really don't care about it like that. I would rather have a healthy Nuggets team getting momentum at the right time of the season for the games that really matter. To me, these don't really matter. There is that monetary incentive there and the NBA Cup. And of course, this is something that the NBA is trying to implement, and I respect and love the NBA. So I'm excited to see them finding ways to make more money within the league and to incentivize these players to play tough early in the season, because I do think there's the load management side of the NBA that drives people crazy. And so I can appreciate the NBA Cup. I can appreciate this in-season tournament. But as a Nuggets fan, I don't really care one way or the other how they perform in this in-season tournament. I would rather have healthy bodies and have this team getting their momentum and playing physical basketball when it matters. And I know, again, when you've got most of your starters clocking almost 40 minutes because we don't have depth in our bench, I don't want to see them full throttle, foot on the gas, giving it their all for a tournament that doesn't matter and then be completely worthless by the end of the season because they're exhausted. So I just don't care for the in-season tournament like that.
Did it get people more excited about basketball last year in November and December? Maybe. Part of it was the ridiculousness of the courts, and I haven't seen to what end that'll.
Courts are
what
wild.
We'll see.
They're also hard for me to watch.
Some of them are.
It's a headache.
Some of them are cool. Some of them are really hard. There's a couple that you're like, oh, that works. But some are it makes the game even more challenging.
Vertigo. I get vertigo.
Yeah, more challenging to watch. And so does it get people paying a little more attention in November and December? I think so. It did. But the reason you want to win those games is because you just want to win the games. They count on your regular season record.
Of course.
So getting to Vegas and playing one extra game if you make it to the championship, cool, you're in Vegas. Great, whatever. They can go to Vegas right now on their off day for a day or two and have just as much fun, if not more fun. But you just want to keep winning games.
Of course.
Because every win is going to matter for playoff seeding at the end of the year.
Yeah.
Your point about Joker, though, is spot on. You can't expect him to keep logging these minutes and not have some sort of breakdown at some point. We're not predicting an injury, but just wear and tear. It's the natural evolution of things, even though he doesn't. I mean, he obviously takes plenty of pounding. He's not necessarily playing the game the way Giannis does or LeBron, where he's living above the rim and all that, but he still leaves the ground. It's not like he's just standing the whole time. He's still running and jumping, and everything goes into that, even if he's not jumping as high as Giannis does. So there still is that impact at that size. And so that's why I think of all the young guys who are now logging more minutes, the one that might matter the most is Zeke Naji. Because if Michael Malone gets to the point where he can really trust Zeke, then you can play Zeke as your backup five, and you don't need Dario Saric. They're paying Zeke to be a backup five, essentially. Not forever, but for 8 minutes a game, basically, maybe 10 minutes a game. And you're going to do it somewhere, and Gordon's out there, and even Payton Watson, who can kind of be a ghost backup five, if you will, depending on the other team's second unit center. The game evolving right now is great for guys that are Payton Watson's size and Zeke Naji's size, where they would have been a power forward or small forward, but because the game's played 3-point line extended so much, and just the nature of the way post players have gravitated towards the outside for the most part. You can't play Payton Watson as a backup center when Andre Drummond's a backup center. Those are the nights you need DeAndre Jordan. But those are kind of few and far between. And so I think, though, going back to it, however you're going to do it, whether it's Payton Watson and Zeke Naji, and maybe you will have that together, because they'll be out there some, if Zeke takes Dario's minutes, you're going to play a full second unit, then seeing Zeke come into his own, whatever that is maybe the most important thing. And also, to your point about Payton Watson, Malone would have gotten there using Payton more. The injury is forcing him to do it now.
Yep.
And I think that's a good thing.
I agree. I want to talk a little bit about Michael Porter Jr. We've seen him lots of ebbs and flows for MPJ so far this season in terms of kind of at what point in the game he starts to activate himself a little bit, and really early start to him getting hot yesterday. 15 points at halftime, 2 of 4 from 3. And he's got very timely threes. They happen to fall right when the Nuggets need that momentum and need that shift. And in talking about Nikola Jokic not being able to play, it's just the longevity of Nikola Jokic's body physically, I don't think will be able to withstand doing what he's doing at such a high level for 40 minutes every game for the rest of the season. It is such a long season. Now, I think something that the starters collectively as a whole can do a little bit of a better job at, and this is something Coach Malone has talked about a lot, is defense. We've got to have better defense, because what we see is an MPJ getting hot early doesn't really mean a whole lot when you don't have stops for a high caliber offense like the Dallas Mavericks. When you let Kyrie Irving score 43 points and Luka over 20, and every one of the starters on that lineup was in double digits. So I think there's something to be said about the lack of defense that our starters are playing. They're not giving themselves any opportunities for rest. Coach Malone made a joke yesterday when he said in the second quarter, gave Nikola Jokic that look like, hey, it's time. And Jokic was like, already? And he's like, yeah, because we have this starting lineup that can produce very well offensively, and they're starting to get in sync and they're finding their rhythm, which is great and all. But when you can't make defensive stops, and then you want to put your second unit in there, you give them this much room for error, and they're just not there yet. They're not in a place where they can be trusted in a close game. I think we can get there at some point. I don't think we're there right now. So I think there is that aspect of our starting lineup that, as good as they have been offensively and finding their groove and their rhythm, and starting to get back to their regular form that we can rely on and trust. And, anytime you have Nikola Jokic on the floor, you're good for a win, and it's a winnable game. But defensively, we're not giving ourselves any room for error offensively because we're just not playing defensively. So we have these big moments. We've got an MPJ that starts hot, 15 points at halftime. His threes are falling. Payton Watson hits some big threes. CB has been very great from the 3-point line as of late, but it doesn't matter when you've got guys on the other side of the ball that are draining threes in your face, and then before you know it, you give Nikola Jokic 2 seconds to breathe, and it's like, well, we need you back out there because this game is now getting way too close, or they pulled ahead. And so yesterday, to see this Nuggets team have a 6-point lead after the first quarter, in my brain, I didn't feel for 1 second that was a safe place to be, because we know that we see them defensively take their foot off the gas, and just like that, the game
It
is
happens plenty.
out of reach.
They've only had the lead. I think this is only the third time they've had the lead after the first quarter all year. And so that's something that is still, I think, perplexing Michael Malone to some degree. They've had really good third quarters and come out of halftime well adjusted. And they did again yesterday, and then held on. Obviously, when you look at just the points by quarter breakdown, they were outscored in the fourth by a point. But I think that this is what, and it kind of reminds me of the start of last year, except that last year they were winning and they weren't playing well as they were trying to find their footing. But this is what a coach loves when he gets a win and things he can coach on. If they're winning 130-92, there's not a lot that you can tweak. When you're eking out wins and you're letting teams back into games and your second unit is letting their foot off the gas, or your starters aren't having a good night, that's when a coach can really get into it, and you're still in okay shape in the standings. So you don't have to freak out on them, but those can be your emphasis. The points you emphasize in practice is these are where we're having our defensive lapses. I mentioned earlier about how Michael Malone didn't like what they did Friday, and Joker tried to push back at that. So, it's just a couple of stretches. Well, then Michael Malone will just listen to that and say, okay, then let's eliminate those stretches of poor defense. And so this is a coach's dream, especially in the NBA, where you've got a good team. You're going to be jockeying for position. Because I think about Friday night when I'm at the game and the Heat game tips off at 7. KU's playing North Carolina, so I'm watching my Jayhawks. That game tipped off at 5. And I know in my brain I should not be yelling at the TV, one, because there's people around, but also in November, second game of the year.
Right.
But that's human nature as a fan. And so I think about, like, Kansas they'll lose at some point. They're playing Michigan State tomorrow in Atlanta. They're going to have a couple of non-conference losses. You want to be hitting your stride in college basketball mid-February into March, and we know how that goes. But someone like Bill Self, who's in year 21, 22, whatever it is, there in Lawrence, he'll stomach a loss early because then he can coach harder. In the NBA, you don't want a bunch of losses. You don't really want any. But if you can play poorly and wins, or have things you can coach on, that's a coach's dream. I think more so in the NBA than college, because of the way the postseason works in college.
I think we've seen enough big defensive moments by multiple players. And I think what I noticed yesterday, typically we had Russell Westbrook with 2 defensive player of the games early in the season, despite their record.
They've definitely upgraded that chain, by the way. That looks blazing out.
Yes, they have. That chain is sick. But we've seen Russell Westbrook, new to this team and getting defensive player of the game. We know with Aaron Gordon back, there's some defensive upside there. We know that Payton Watson in the mix has had some big defensive moments. We know that CB can provide some defensive upside as well to that starting lineup. And Michael Porter Jr. had some big defensive plays last night against the Dallas Mavericks, and even Julian Strawther. So right now, early in the season, what feels good to me is knowing that our defense can stretch across multiple players. We've seen now just about everybody in the starting lineup outside of maybe Jamal Murray, who was out with a concussion. And I do think so much of Jamal Murray's game that can feel frustrating as a Nuggets fan is just lack of effort. And I've felt that way for some time. I'm not calling him a lazy person. I'm just saying sometimes he appears to be playing lazy basketball. And if I'm wrong in that, I'm just waiting for him to prove me wrong. I want to see that hustle on both sides of the floor. And we saw in non-Jamal starting minutes when Westbrook was in there, it did feel like there was a different energy about the starting lineup, and I think Westbrook had a lot to do with that. So I think what feels good is knowing that there's a lot of guys on this roster that can make big defensive plays, and I think that it's only going to get better as they find that rhythm and that sync. I have to say, there were a lot of premature Nuggets demise tweets and opinions flying through the air based on their 0-2 start, not defending home court very well. Let's not forget, they played OKC in their start in their first game of the season. And this Nuggets team made a lot of changes in their offseason. New starter, Russell Westbrook, Julian Strawther in his first healthy season, Payton Watson, 0 preseason minutes being played. And so the expectation that this Nuggets team was going to look perfect from jump was unrealistic. And I saw a lot of premature takes about the Nuggets being in their demise, or yes, we're finally seeing the Nuggets fall apart. I love this. I'm enjoying this. Most of which came from Lakers fans who are sitting on a comfortable 3-0, but since those premature takes hasn't trended very well for them.
And now Anthony Davis gets poked in the eye. We'll see how that goes. It's happened twice. Same eye last year. He got
It's just the way you
like
said that.
a corneal abrasion multiple times in the same eye twice. So they've only got one game in the early part of the week. They play Wednesday.
And Anthony Davis got poked in the eye. Do you remember that game that LeBron James went ballistic and then was like, yeah, it's crazy. Like I was seeing 3 rims the whole game. I was like, oh my gosh.
Just pick the middle one, I guess.
I guess you have to if there's 3. But yeah, a lot of premature takes coming from a lot of different people about the Nuggets demise that they were anticipating. But right now, this Nuggets team is playing some really good basketball. And I think the exciting part about that is it still is very early in this season. And we are still without Aaron Gordon. And we didn't play much of our bench yesterday against the Dallas Mavericks. But there's some promise in our bench. And so I'm not really ready to start playing chess. If we're looking at that lack of depth, I believe right now our bench is ranked higher this season than it was last season.
Yeah.
So to me, there's promise there with our bench.
Just say you're not playing chess. There's not a lot of moves they can make unless it goes outside the walls. Aaron Gordon's coming back. It's not a devastating injury. You're going to have to manage the bumps and bruises that come throughout the season to any of your players that may sustain something, an ankle, a knee, whatever, a shoulder, getting poked in the eye. And so I think that's kind of the blessing of this win streak and these wins as they've won. I guess they've won 5 in a row. So they're 7-10, 7-3 now, right?
Yeah.
7-3. So after losing those first 2, you've won 7 of 8. Is that these young guys are being asked to fulfill the roles that they were envisioned to fill. It's a bummer that Deron Holmes isn't healthy, but if you can get something from Zeke Naji, then that feels like icing on the cake at this point. And
he had some promising moments in preseason play.
Yeah, no,
he wasn't perfect.
Talent there. They didn't give him a 4-year, $32 million deal because he just can't play, but we're going to pay him. So they obviously.
Sometimes it does feel that way.
I get that it can across the league and maybe even across multiple sports, but Zeke Naji, Hunter Tyson, Payton Watson, Julian Strawther, all getting more valuable minutes now.
Yep.
Is only going to be a good thing. And you have to, if this plays out and they're playing the same way and winning playoff games where we know the starters are going to be asked to do a little more anyway, but that you're actually getting real playoff minutes and it's not just plugging DeAndre Jordan in for 6 fouls on a night when you might need him. I'm saying even in the playoffs, which they've done a little bit. It can only be a good thing. And then Calvin Booth has to be commended for his strategy. If these guys become the contributors that they hope that they will be as real NBA players that have to be dealt with that are formidable, then not only the predictions of the Nuggets demise, but okay, who can beat them?
Yeah.
Because they still have the best player in the world.
They absolutely do. Right now, to me, two teams playing the best basketball.
Los Cavaliers, Los Cavs.
And who do you think my other
11
one is?
Suns?
No,
Nuggets?
no,
Thunder?
no.
Warriors?
Yeah.
Dubs?
Yeah. I think right now the Warriors and the Cavs are playing now. Will we be saying the same thing 4 weeks from now? Probably
No,
not.
You're probably more
because we
concerned about their
know-
injury history than
Correct.
even.
we know a lot of stuff can change between
Denver.
now and even 3 weeks from now. It can look like a very different power rankings, if you will. If you wanted to make a power ranking every week, it would look completely different every week in the NBA. So again, very early in the season, only 10 games in for this Nuggets team. But to me, I'd be comfortable putting the Nuggets right now in the top 5.
Yeah, and
I'd probably go Cavs, Warriors.
Cavs are playing the
you-
best basketball, but
You still got to put the Celtics in there.
I can't pick the Cavs to beat the Celtics until I see them do it in the playoffs.
No, of course not. But
playing the
based
best
on
basketball,
current,
playing the
yeah.
best
So I'm going to
basketball.
go. If we're going based off of playing the best basketball right now in this moment, my list is Cavs, Warriors, Celtics, OKC, Nuggets.
The Suns are 8
And
and 2 though.
OKC Nuggets, you could probably have them be a little interchangeable because the Nuggets have proven they can beat them.
Clearly, the Suns will have some stuff figured out. They are 8 and 2 out of the gate.
They
The Thunder and the Warriors are 8 and 2. Nuggets are 7 and 3. Grizzlies 7 and 4. Lakers 6 and 4. In the East, we still only have 2 teams over 500. This was the case Thursday.
How many flipping times do I got to say it out loud with a mic in front of my mouth? The Western Conference
Is superior?
is far more superior and competitive and talented than the Eastern Conference. It's not even close. It's not even close. Look at the Western Conference right now. The Grizzlies are not a team that you can sleep on.
No.
We've got the Warriors in there, the Suns, the Nuggets. There's plenty
Houston
more.
Rockets being the surprise.
The Rockets are in there. I
They've
mean,
fallen back a little bit, but they're still 6 and 4. You have 10 teams over 500, and the Dallas Mavs, the defending Western champs, are 500 at 5 and 5. The Spurs just a game under, and we know Wemby, who had a big game with 7 blocks to go with 20-something points and a bunch of boards. I can't remember the last time there was a quadruple double in the league. I know that David Robinson also got one back in the day.
okay.
If Wemby doesn't have a handful of quadruple doubles in his career, I'll be surprised. The biggest key to that's going to be the passing, the points, the rebounds, and shot blocks. I feel like we'll see some 10 block games from you. At 7, there will be some 10 block games, but will it come with points, assists, and rebounds?
So I've spent a little bit of time talking in some post game shows about how I believe voter fatigue will affect Nikola Jokic this season. Not because I think it should, but because I think that we have across the league, outside of the small group of Nuggets fans that have watched Nikola Jokic through his career, there's this overall theme across the league that Nikola Jokic is great, yes, but we still struggle to give credit where it's due. There's so many people that just want to find something to hang on to not give Nikola Jokic the credit that he deserves. And so I do think voter fatigue will become an issue for him as it pertains to MVP. Here's the best part about it, though. He doesn't care. Nikola Jokic doesn't care. We care more than he does. I really believe that
About the MVP?
About the MVP. I just don't think it's an award that he's like, I've got to have it this year. I have to. I
I
think
don't think he thinks that any years.
I don't think he's ever thought that. And so I do think that voter fatigue will become an issue in terms of will he get an MVP this season. But I said that prior. And then watching last night's game, I kind of had that thought, and I know you did too because you got in the group chat with it. He may make it impossible for people to not give him MVP
I think in order
again.
to do that, if he averages a triple-double again,
Yes.
that's going to make a true triple-double. So not 9.1 assists, not 8.7, which are still amazing numbers, obviously, for really any player, but especially a center. But if it's a full-blown triple-double for
30,
the year,
12, 10. Like,
and he is healthy 75 plus games, 78 games, 80, 82 games, and they win the West by more than a game. Not comes down to the final Sunday where it's a tiebreaker
against the
but-
San Antonio Spurs.
but they win the West the way they won the West 2 years ago when they won the championship.
Yep.
Where by the end of the year, when all the dust settles, the Nuggets are 63 and 19 and win the West. And the next team, OKC, whoever it is at 61 or 60, whatever that number is.
Yeah.
But clearly they are the best team in the West and are all year. It's going to be almost impossible unless someone else's numbers are crazy. But if OKC finishes third or fourth, even if SGA keeps doing what he's doing, same with the Mavs and Luka or Wemby, who I think will be a league MVP at some point, or Jason Tatum and the Celtics run away with the East like they did last year. There's no way Jason Tatum's numbers will ever compare to what Joker's overall numbers are.
Right.
It's going to be really hard to not give him a fourth MVP and acknowledge how special he is.
Right.
I think part of it is he plays in Denver. Part of it is that he does seem to not care. Friday night, and apparently he waited even longer to talk yesterday. It's like he keeps pushing back how long.
Yeah, he takes his time for sure.
He's going through everything. But Friday night, game ends at 9:27 local time here in Denver. He comes in at a little 11:36, a little 10:52 or something. So almost a full hour and a half. But he sat and he took multiple questions from a bunch of us. And one of the questions I asked him was, does he ever appreciate, and I use the word appreciate, he spends so much time telling us, oh, well, MPJ was good tonight. Look, he made 4 or 4 from 3 or whatever. He talks about his team and he looks at the box score. So I asked him, do you ever look at your box score and think about the game? Like, oh, that was a good game. Or tonight I need to do this. Because it doesn't seem like he ever thinks I need 30 tonight or I need 40 tonight. He just plays every play, take what the defense gives you. If they make it easy for him to score, he scores. If they double, he finds the open guy or the guy that's going to get it to the open guy, whatever. And he said, yeah, I do look at it and I do take time to appreciate, oh, that was a good game. He goes, but I have bad games. And that's when he said, what I do in that second game, I thought that was and somebody goes, you scored 41 in the triple double. He's like, oh, well, against Minnesota the next night, I didn't play good down the very end of the game, and that's why we lost. But he said, when you play well, you do have to appreciate it. So there is some appreciation. And CB let us in on the idea that, because you don't know, you figure he's always watching horse racing or Minions or whatever.
Minions.
Christian Brown said, because he was asked about his relationship with Joker, and he goes, yeah, we text all the time, and we're both watching League Pass, and he and I'll be watching the same game a lot, and he'll text me, hey, did you just see that? So Joker is spending time at night watching hoops more than we ever thought about how he was spending time.
It actually is hilarious to me that the narrative out there still exists that Nikola Jokic does not care about basketball.
Yeah, he's the one.
It's the most comical thing in the entire world. Look what they said
in Minnesota, where Anthony Edwards and Rudy Gobert are freaking out that he knows the plays. Admittedly, they all have the kind of same offense, but Chris Finch was here, so they really have not only the same offense, some of the same calls. But Joker, because he's watching everything, and you talk about playing checkers or chess or whatever, he's definitely playing 3D chess. The true greats like LeBron and MJ and Kobe and guys like that are playing at a level above that, the average person. And Joker's right there.
Well, you know what I think irritates people the most about Nikola Jokic? He's 5 steps ahead of everybody at all times. And he does it very effortlessly. And sometimes it can maybe appear like he doesn't care because he's got this very cool, calm demeanor about him. That's just Nikola Jokic. I mean, I think every time I've, been in a room with him when he's doing a post-game presser or seen him around, it's not like he just starts doing this when he walks out onto the basketball court. That's just the nature of Nikola Jokic. I just think he has that demeanor about him that's very calm and chill and relaxed. And I think it drives people crazy that he can be so relaxed and be also your worst nightmare wrapped all into one.
You do see how fiery he is. And I think our pal Vic Lombardi tweeted that he's lucky enough to be down there for altitude a lot of games when he's doing the sidelines, being near the huddle. And they're going to show more of it on TV, I think. But we know Joker will get in there chilly, as they say. And Russell Westbrook does as well. And that's something Sean Payton always talks about. And Michael Malone said it kind of in a different way. But Sean Payton always say, hey, the best teams are the ones where the players truly lead. And so you know what you're going to get from Joker and some of these other guys and DJ and Aaron Gordon and guys like that. And, add Russell Westbrook. But Malone said, hey, I don't have to always be the guy in their face. In fact, it's often better when it is the players. And so you see that fire from Joker. It's just that by the time we see him an hour and a half after the game or an hour after the game, he's just ready to move on to the next game or get home and take his daughter swimming. But he's watching more basketball than we realize. And he does care more.
Of course.
He just doesn't need to express that to us.
Right.
He does express it to his teammates.
Well, and again, he doesn't really owe, like you said, he doesn't owe anybody an explanation as to what he does in his free time. There's a reason that this man does not have social media. He doesn't,
That we know of. Maybe he has a bunch of ghost accounts.
he might have some burner accounts. He might be in the chat right now, actually.
Who knows? I know my man Kenny is Kenzo's Customs. He was shouting out P Watt earlier.
Love it.
I haven't talked to Kenny in a minute. Kenny, I'll shoot you a text. But Kenny, huge Nuggets fan and checking us out. So yeah,
Love it.
Joker maybe in the chat right now. We don't
I love
realize
that.
because they're not practicing today. They got the day off.
Yeah.
And that's the one thing before we get out of here.
Rightfully so.
This has been not a brutal schedule, but a very
It's been jam-packed
busy,
early.
very busy.
Yeah.
And the other side of that is that they will get some reprieve, not just now,
Yeah.
but kind of
They've
throughout
got
the
some
year.
time off this week.
And so Sunday night game, no practice today. I bet tomorrow's like an optional kind of thing.
Yeah.
They may have us over there because early in the year, coaches want to practice. And that's where Michael Malone and Jared Bednar are cut from the same cloth. Like if they can be in the gym or be on the ice, they want to. And maybe in hockey, they do a better job of saying, hey, it's optional.
Right.
But that means mostly you should be there.
Right.
The Nuggets, if it's optional, I think some guys do take that option, especially vets, to not be there. But then they'll have a good couple days of practice, whether that includes Tuesday or not. But Wednesday, Thursday, fly to New Orleans, and you get Thursday, or Friday rather. So you go Sunday to Friday, nice little break.
Mm-hmm.
Not great for my fantasy team. They wanted to try to get some Christian Brown points, but whatever. He'll play Friday, and then Sunday they go back to back in Memphis, Sunday, Tuesday.
Yep.
And then they're back home, shoot out to LA, whatever, all that. But they're home against the Mavs again as part of the play-in tournament, or I mean, in season tournament. But now they have a time to kind of regroup and appreciate that they're 7-3 and squarely in the mix towards the top of the standings. Just a game out of overall first place.
Yeah. And again, this is all without Aaron Gordon, who we know is a very important piece to the offense and defense for this team.
And without Jamal Murray for 3 of them. So
yeah. And Jamal Murray's back. And I want to see more of that same fire he had in that first game back against the Miami Heat, because that was kind of that. And he has had some pretty clean jumpers that you're like, there he is. They don't, you can't tell if they're going in, and then it's nothing but net, and it's just a beautiful sight to see. But just want to see more fire from him. I want Jamal Murray to play every game like Russell Westbrook's after his job.
Yeah, and it's at the same time he knows that Russell Westbrook's not after his job.
Well,
per
can he
se.
pretend?
Well, I think it's less about pretending and more about Russell rubbing off on him in a positive manner, because we talked about it last Thursday on off court. Then we talked about it again Friday night when Jamal being back, as we were trying to figure out exactly how Michael Malone's going to work with his second team. And it is a work in progress, because I think he's trying to decide, do I want Russ and Joker out there together? Maybe I want Russ and Jamal. I thought Russ with CB and MPJ and P Watt made sense. And we saw a little bit of that, I think, Friday. But will Russ's nonstop intensity, where it is, because Joker has the same thing, but because of his demeanor and
they
his
show
pace
differently.
And his pace, you can't tell that it's nonstop.
I think.
But with Russ, that he is. It's like you talk about Energizer, like it is on. Just like when he was asked, do you get up more for a game against a big game against a big team? I think Katie Wingy asked him that on Wednesday after the Thunder win. He goes, no, every day is the same. Tomorrow's not promised, which some people say all the time. But you look at the way Russ plays,
he embodies it.
He embodies that. And so when I asked Jamal, hey, how do you like it? He goes, yeah, the intent. He's like, you have to keep up at that pace. That's great. But Russ is setting that tone.
Yep.
And I understand when it's Jamal and Joker, you can't always play at that pace, but you can, I guess, acquire some of that intensity or amp yours up.
Of course.
And this is something we're 10 games in now. Let's talk again in 10 more games. And in 10 more games after that, will we see it? And then really when Russ is gone, whether that's next year, the year after, whenever he decides to hang him up or whatever it may be, does that rub off on Jamal? And part of it is personality driven too. It's hard to just become someone that you're not. If it's in there and you can unlock it, then that's different. And we'll see. Jamal does have kind of a laissez-faire attitude, it seems like at times, because he knows you're really good.
He always has it, even in post game.
Unless you're talking about UFC, but that's sort of the point. It's like this is a guy that loves UFC and does UFC training, and that's a different kind of deal. There's no like you don't ease into a UFC fight. I'm not saying that fighters don't feel each other,
Right.
but that can happen real quick, right? You'll
get knocked on your
punched in the mouth or kicked in the leg or whatever. And so because of that, it's one of those where does Jamal have it in him? And we see it in the playoffs to where it gets unlocked to because that's how you become a perennial all-star. Jamal Murray is going to stay at the top of the list. I guess he and Wemby, but Wemby will be an all-star this year. Of best player to not be an all-star in the league. And, he's 8-9 years in now. And he's that guy, maybe of all time.
I guess I just don't see enough people talking about, as fans, our large concern is, does our bench have enough depth to give Nikola Jokic some time away where he can catch his breath and have some rest? Because like Coach Malone said, like I have said, like many people have said, it's not realistic for Nikola Jokic to play 40 minutes across the entire 82-game season. But I don't see enough people talking about, hey, Nikola Jokic wouldn't have to do as much if Jamal Murray did what I think the Nuggets paid for, which is be a max contract player and show us some of that 2020 or 2023 championship run play that we know he can do. We often talk about, well, Jamal Murray in the playoffs. Well, screw that. We have to get there first. I don't really care about that version of him because I know he's capable of getting there. I want to see that version happen all the time. And so when it doesn't, it does require more out of a Nikola Jokic to then, bring his all or score almost 40 points or have a triple double because you don't have the version of Jamal that is so desperately important to the success of this team that it does make Nikola Jokic's life a lot harder. So I know that these two are capable of being one of the best 1-2 punches in the league. We saw that the year they won the championship, but the more we don't see Jamal Murray show up, the harder it is going to be for Nikola Jokic, and the more minutes he's going to have to play, or the more damage control mid-game he's going to have to do because you don't have the Jamal Murray that you not only paid a max contract to, but you know that you desperately need in order to have a successful season.
Basketball is not the same as football in terms of homegrown talent throughout your roster being truly positive for your culture. And this is something that came up really on the championship run and the lead up to it. But Michael Malone, is he the one who sets the culture and Joker follows it? Does Joker set it and Malone kind of tweaks his stuff to match it? And really, they do kind of work together. It's a perfect match. It's like a Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, or like Phil Jackson and Michael Jordan, Phil Jackson and Kobe and Shaq. I mean, I guess Scottie Pippen and all those guys. But the right pop with Tim Duncan, when it works, it really works, and we get that. And the Nuggets have given max deals to their 3 homegrown stars with Jamal, and you can put asterisk next to MPJ and Jamal, but certainly star talent. They acquired Aaron Gordon, fit him in perfectly, have given him money, gave Zeke Naji a little bit of money, but CB is going to be coming up for a deal, and Strother is going to as a first round pick. But what I was getting at is, there's a comment that comes in from Tyler Schwartz who says the trade deadline is going to be key and that'll make or break the season. I'm not saying it's not a move to be made, but there is still value because every team in the world, especially even the professional level, yes, it's about winning in business, but they say, hey, we're a family. And we've seen how close this Nuggets team really is the last couple of years and how much time they spend together away from basketball when they're on the road or when they're home, and they're always out. And that's where MPJ and Aaron Gordon, I think, but Aaron Gordon especially being the ringleader, and then Jamal, but they get together and it's big groups of them. And that I think is great. But the other thing that's also great is if they don't make a move, and I'm not saying they won't, I don't want move theirs to be made. And they're kind of limited because of the financial just construct of the league and where they are with the salary cap and all of that, and the aprons and everything, and not wanting to go way into the second and third apron and all that. There is value in having your entire organization buy in when they know Zeke Naji is probably the best example, but even Hunter Tyson and Payton Watson is like, hey, we've got these young guys that we know we need more from. We've drafted them high. We've acquired them, and we are rolling with them. Like, we are saying, no, we want our guys. It's not that we don't want X player that is available because the Jazz are looking to grab another draft pick or whatever. It's no, our guys are the ones that are part of our culture, helping us grow this thing, and we're going to continue to rock with them, let them go through their growing pains, and then come playoffs, they know what we're about and they can bring it too.
I agree. I think that this Nuggets team is trending in a beautiful direction right now. I'm very excited about all of the things that we're seeing. We're seeing little, no pun intended, seeing little nuggets of things that we like. And I think it's so early in the season still that the things we don't like, they're very fixable. They're very fixable problems. You know?
Especially the defense thing, like you talked
the
about.
defense thing. And again, when you asked MPJ in the locker room if he was worried about it, he wasn't. He didn't even blink an eye. He's like, yeah, we're not worried about it. We're good. We know what we can do and we know what we can bring. And so defensively, that right now is probably my largest concern. And it feels like a very fixable problem 10 games into the season when we know how long this season can be. So I'm pretty excited about what they've got going on. And they're on a 5-game win streak defending home court like we know they can, without a Jamal Murray for the first part of those games and then without an Aaron Gordon in the last part. So they're in a good spot. They're in a really great spot, and they're not beating teams that are unimpressive. They're putting up a fight against some really great playoff contenders. And so for that, you have to feel pretty good about where this team is only 10 games into the season with injuries to their starting lineup and more minutes with their bench. I think the Nuggets are in a really great spot right now. And I think the premature Nuggets are falling off takes at this point in time feel pretty laughable. So I love it.
We'll see now. They go to New Orleans. If Zion can even get back on the court, he's dealing with a hamstring maybe. We know they're still a pretty good team. They're getting Trey Murphy the third back, who they gave that money to. And you still got Ingram and the rest of that cast there. But then the 2 games against the Grizzlies with Ja back to playing like Ja.
Yeah.
Every time you flip on Sports Center, I feel like I'm seeing Ja Morant. Highlights are on social media. And look, if that kid can stay out of his own way and just keep his nose clean, figuratively speaking, and play basketball, there's an electricity to the way that dude plays.
He is fun to watch.
That he's really fun to watch. And so that's going to be a tough test with those back-to-back games Sunday.
The Western Conference is going to be a bloodbath. I mean, that's again, like you make a great point there with that Grizzlies team. We're going to see them in two road games pretty much back to back.
There are no Grizzlies in Tennessee, but they came from Vancouver where there are Grizzlies. Just like there's not that many lakes in LA.
The more you know.
And not a lot of jazz music in Utah.
There you go. The more you know. And what's a nugget? The gold nugget.
Gold nuggets, yeah. There are not that many of those either. Yeah. They've been mined here. I will say this. Back when hashtags was really becoming a thing.
Yeah.
And you would do it and that would help with searches. And you see, it's the Nuggets. So we're going back to like Carmelo Anthony days, like 09.
My favorite player ever.
But, and I'm getting on Twitter and hashtags and all this. The amount of people that would hashtag Nuggets that would just be talking about chicken nuggets. Like, I'm about to kill this 20-piece, hashtag Nuggets. So, like, you'd search, who's hashtagging Nuggets? And it'd be mostly a lot of basketball, but a lot of people used to hashtag Nuggets talking about their chicken nuggets. But that is not what this team is about. They're about the gold that was found out here in the Rocky Mountain region.
Wouldn't that be something if it was actually like chicken nuggets?
That's really what they're like, you know what? All the gold nuggets.
They're like, everyone took it a different way. We'll just go with them. But it was actually
nuggets.
Supposed to be chicken
Yeah,
nuggets.
like we loved them. It was our favorite, our owner's favorite food.
That'd be pretty
When they switched from the Rockets, like, you know what? I don't really dig Rockets, but chicken nuggets. There's a chance that we should look this up real quick before we get out of here. When do we think chicken nuggets as like a thing was invented? I'm not saying that people didn't break up nuggets and break up chicken and fry it or whatever, like fried chicken, but boneless chicken nuggets and or chicken strips.
I got you.
I'm going to say 80s. And if it's before the 80s, it can't be much more than late 70s. What's the internet say?
Robert C. Baker invented chicken nuggets in 1963.
Okay.
During World War II, the U.S. government instituted rationing.
Okay.
Things like beef and pork were hard to come by, so Americans ate a whole lot of chicken.
Okay. And by 1963, he's like, let's cut these up and drop them into a fryer. We're now rationing them. All right. Well, it's worked out, especially if you have kids. What did kids eat before that? Like my 4-year-old, chicken nuggets is a pretty big staple.
Yeah, I don't know. I bet you back then kids were less picky because they didn't have a choice.
Yeah, like you can eat these
now there's like a million. I mean, in my freezer right now, I have like fish. It like takes me back to when I was a kid. You know how I used to complain to when my mom would say the phrase, "We have food at home." I was like, "You hate me. Like you just hate me. You don't love me. I want McDonald's. You're not giving me McDonald's." But now my entire freezer is all the things that I grew up hating. Fish sticks, popcorn shrimp, I have dino nuggets in my fridge.
So
I have hot pockets in my fridge. I have
what
fish sticks in
so
my
why are
fridge.
you worried
Like,
about the DoorDash on Friday?
because I love a DoorDash
on Friday.
because I love a DoorDash.
I get it.
I'm a loyal DoorDash customer.
That's
through
great.
And through.
I'm not trying to. And if DoorDash wants to sponsor Off Court, we're
Please
happy
do,
to have
because
it.
I actually, while we were live, got a notification
I thought you said you
that
ordered lunch.
$9.99 for my like DoorDash subscription for free delivery. I just got charged it. So
I guess free delivery. I was like, it's not free. It's $10.
it makes sense for me because of how much. Full transparency, it's not that I can grocery shop and all that stuff, but really it's like in between filming stuff, it's a lot quicker when it's just on my doorstep and I can
in a dash.
throw it back.
Some might say.
In a dash, some might say. Okay, well, we will be back again on Thursday, 12 p.m. Mountain Time, for another episode of Off Court, breaking down kind of all things NBA, because we will have this little break, but then we'll definitely be jumping into that preview for that New Orleans game for this Denver Nuggets team. But they've got a good little week of rest ahead of them. Hopefully they use it and also tighten up a few things before they hit the road again. They've done such a great job at home, but would love to see them continue these wins on the road as well. So we'll be back again on Thursday to talk a little more off court. And then we will have you covered, despite them being on the road, we will still have you covered for all things Denver Nuggets while they're on the road, with some post-game shows, as well as maybe some pre-game previews and all that good stuff. So make sure you're tuning into All Things Guerrilla Sports. I'm Liv Moods. That's Brandon Cristal, aka BK, and we'll be back again Thursday with more Off Court.